Good afternoon, everyone. I am super excited for today's video for a few reasons. First, I'm pretty dang proud that this video is being made within a week of my last one. Actually, a couple days. Yeah, a couple days. So hopefully, I'm thinking that the days of uploading nothing for months and months on end are hopefully over, fingers crossed. I guess I can't really say for sure. YouTube is something that I've always wanted to get into. I feel like maybe I have something to offer that people might want to see, but time is evil. It's been hard. Anyway, I'm also excited because today I'm finally testing out the famous Chameleon color tones markers that I've pretty much been seeing everywhere on the internet. There was a time when I had to watch demos of them pretty much every day on Facebook because my friends kept tagging me in them and they were so fascinating, and I don't know, the art supply hoarder in me just needed them so badly. But as I've talked about before a little bit on this channel, unlike some of your favorite YouTube artists, who are also my favorite YouTube artists, I can't really go to the store and just drop a fortune on a new set of whatever, which I know they can't either, but it's their job to do YouTube stuff generally. For me, it's kind of just a hobby. So, yeah, because I'm trying to buy myself a new computer for my actual job and my own car so I don't have to use my parents anymore, and yeah, just young adult problems, man. So instead of buying the complete set of the Chameleon markers, I picked out a smaller set of, I think, five markers. It's the Nature Tones set, because outdoor scenes are honestly my jam, and I figured that I'd get a lot of use out of them. I honestly feel kind of bad that I can't really use the markers to their full potential, just because I don't have a huge variety of colors. I've got some browns and some greens, and that's about it. But I also feel like that'll make my review pretty helpful for people, because I'd imagine that most shoppers probably won't buy the whole set either. They'll probably kind of be in the same boat as me. So hopefully this is kind of helpful. The set I got was less than $30 at my local art store, so it's a little bit more reasonable than getting the whole set, I think. What makes the Chameleon Pens special and sort of different from every other alcohol-based marker out there is that, I kind of tried to show you guys in the video, hopefully you can see it, but it's that each marker comes with an attached blending chamber where you can kind of allow the blending liquid to seep into the tip of the marker. And then if you color with it, it creates a gradient from almost white all the way back to the original vibrant marker color. So this allows you to shade small areas very quickly. And for me, this has a few benefits, because in theory, this makes these markers a lot cheaper than my usual favorites, which are Copics, or Prismacolors, or whatever the heck you might usually use. And this is because each Chameleon pen is basically many, many shades within one marker. Whereas if I were using Copics to color, I don't know, say the red rocks on the picture, it would probably take me at least 3 markers to create the same or a similar look. Also, the Chameleon markers can be refilled once the ink runs out, and the tips can be replaced. Actually, it comes with a few replacement tips, which is helpful. And this makes them cost-effective if you want to invest in them and use them for a long time. Because some markers, if you ruin it, like if the tip gets ruined or if they run out of ink, you have to buy a whole new marker sometimes. And this is super helpful because it's pretty much a one-time cost kind of thing. And then after that, it's kind of just maintaining them over time, which that is super helpful. So first I'm going to talk about some things that I maybe didn't like so much about my set, and then I'll talk about the things that I did like. Firstly, I wasn't too fond of the variety of colors that I received. The package that I got was called Nature Tones, as I believe I've mentioned, and 3 of the colors are green. Now the caps of the markers and the packaging made it look like they are three very drastically different greens, which I was pretty excited for because, as I said, I do a lot of nature scenes and stuff. But when I was using them, they were actually fairly similar. And especially since the Chameleon pen is basically a gradient of color, I kind of, in a way, just got 9 kinds of green in this set. And if I could have gone back in time and gotten a different set of markers, I probably would not have picked this set. However, that's kind of just a personal opinion thing, and if you find that you really, really like green and you use a lot of green, then who knows, this set might be perfect for you. I just wasn't a huge fan, and I kind of feel like I wasn't getting as much money's worth as I could have been. Something else I noticed during my first impression of these markers was that the gradient created by them isn't always evenly distributed. And this is kind of hard to explain, so bear with me. The markers do a really great job of going from light to dark, just as they're supposed to do. It's a smooth transition and everything. But I found that they stay on the white or very light side of the spectrum for quite a long time, and then after that they transition to dark too quickly. There's too much light and not enough mid-tone, I guess. Of course, I can't really critique this too much because, honestly, I have absolutely no idea how the creators of these markers would ever be able to fix this. It's probably not something that can really easily be adjusted, but in my opinion, it's kind of just something to think about while using them, because I found that I had to go over some areas multiple times, which kind of became messy and may have ruined the effect of some parts a little bit, so just something to think about. Related to this, it might be worth noting that gradients in the natural world don't usually go from pure white to a pure color like these pens do. One of the biggest things I learned in art school is that light itself usually has a color. Sunlight is yellowish, indoor lights may be kind of bluish, depending on the kind of lights you have, but it's usually not pure white. Oh, and shadows have colors too. They're not just gray or a darker version of the color usually. They kind of are purpley or bluey or whatever. In other words, Chameleon pens are really excellent tools to get nice shading, but they don't replace real knowledge of color theory and how light works. Don't get me wrong, I like the pens a lot. I just kind of thought I'd point this out because I've had a lot of non-artist friends who have been kind of disappointed in these pens because they thought they would just pick one up and draw a rose perfectly, and that's not how it works, because it's not the materials themselves that are going to make you a fantastic artist. It's your artistic skills that will make the materials do what you need them to do. Like, every oil painter ever needed to mix their paint. They couldn't just use it straight out of the tube and get, Mona Lisa or whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. And I kind of struggled with this because only having 5 markers, it was kind of hard to mix them and get the natural colors that I needed. But that brings me to the positives. My favorite things about these markers, and this is something that I was kind of skeptical about before I started, is that they worked beautifully with my other art materials. As you guys can see, at the end of the drawing, I had to go back in with colored pencils and Copics in order to get a somewhat kind of finished look, which, the drawing was only meant to be a quick sketchbook drawing kind of thing, not a full piece by any standards. But, I don't know. I still wanted it to look kind of done. But, yeah, I had no problems going back in and blending it with other art materials. And this isn't unusual for me. I think I mentioned that Copics are pretty much my favorite, but I'm not afraid to use multiple materials in one drawing. If I don't have the colors that I need, or if I want to get different textures or something like that. This is especially, this is especially because Copics are freaking expensive, and I usually don't want to go all the way to the art store to get a very specific shade of blue if I can get a similar effect with some other kind of material that I already have in my room. Anyway, I found that the Chameleon pen ink is super high quality, comparable to Copic ink even, and they were pretty easy to blend and work together. I was kind of worried that they wouldn't layer right, that they wouldn't be able to blend, but I didn't have problems with that. I even, in my sketchbook, swatched my 5 Chameleon pens next to Copic markers that were kind of the same color, and some of them were almost identical. I think there was one of the greens that I could barely even tell apart. So, if you are one of the many artists who swear loyalty to Copic, you would probably still like these, at least in my opinion. One final point I'd like to make is something I've seen commented on a lot of other Chameleon pen review videos, and that's that people seem to be concerned that the markers are going to take too long to load. They're not loading. Maybe charging is a better word. But the time that it takes for the colorless blending liquid to seep into the tip of the marker to create the whole gradient look kind of takes a while. I wasn't really counting, but it was maybe 20-30 seconds before each time I used a marker, which I can see how people might find that pretty tedious. Actually, if you want a more accurate guess on how long it took, the markers actually come with instructions, which includes a little chart saying how long it will take each marker to do its thing to get like different kinds of looks, I guess, if that makes any sense at all. However, it didn't really bother me, even though I did spend a lot of time waiting, and that's kind of for a few reasons. First, if I were using Copics or, I don't know, colored pencil or whatever, it would probably still take me some time to find and uncap all the markers that I needed, and it would take time to blend, especially because it would take a lot of different materials to get the same kind of gradient that just one marker can do with the Chameleon pens. So I guess in the long run, doing it this way is probably honestly kind of a time saver. Also, it might be worth noting that I've spent a lot of time doing oil paintings or watercolor paintings, and stuff like that requires obviously a lot of color mixing and figuring out the consistency of paint that you want and waiting for paint to dry, which is literally the worst thing ever. So I guess I'm kind of used to waiting for my art materials to load before using them. So overall, this really wasn't a problem for me, but I can see how it might be tedious to some people if they're just using the pens just for coloring's sake. It might get a little bit annoying, I guess, but it wasn't an issue for me. So to give one final summary on how I really feel about these, I feel like I really like these pens, and I would totally add them to my toolbox of everyday coloring materials. They're pretty cheap because they're refillable. I mean, the initial, oh my god, words. The initial purchase might be a little bit expensive, especially if you get more than 5 markers at once, not unlike me. But because of the replacement nibs and the replacement ink available, they come to be pretty cheap in the long run if you use them as an intense hobby or part of your career or whatever. I also didn't have any problems blending them with my other markers or art materials. I feel like I might have a little bit less control over them than I do with Copics, because like I said, the gradient isn't exactly what I would hope for. It's definitely a learning curve though. So I guess they probably wouldn't work for every single type of drawing. For example, I thought it was pretty dang hard to do a landscape with them, but they would work really well if you're doing like a rose, like all the commercials show, or some kind of one solid object. I think they would look very nice on that. They're also fast. It's nice to be able to use one marker instead of many markers to kind of achieve your gradient look. There's, I don't know, I can see how a lot of people interested in making really high-level art pieces with these might not like them because of the whole light and shadow thing. You probably would have to use more than one marker, again, because light has color and shadows have color. You can't just use one marker to make that. However, I think these things would really shine while doing more like flat design work, like mandalas or adult coloring books. I feel like those would look stunning in that kind of design, I guess. But yeah, I guess overall I like these and I definitely recommend them. This video obviously isn't sponsored in any way because I've got teeny tiny little channel, and yeah, they wouldn't sponsor me, so what I'm saying is definitely totally legit, I promise. So, if you somehow got this far in the video, you are wonderful, you are my MVP for the day. I don't know, I'm sending you virtual gold stars or cookies or hugs or whatever the heck you want. And yeah, I always tell people that I'm not asking for likes or subscribers this early in the game because I realize I'm just a little baby YouTuber, and yeah, I don't post that often, whatever. But I'll also put in the description other places where you can find me, particularly my Instagram. I post a lot of daily doodles and stuff there. I'm a lot more social there, I suppose. It's a good time. And yeah, thank you for getting this far, and I hope I'll see you again in less than 6 months, hopefully. That's the goal. Fingers crossed. Alright, have a lovely day. Bye!